Tony Easter on the floor here in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Pacers just played on this lovely sapphire and mustardy yellow court for the last time. The Boom Baby court, the NBA Cup run over for the Pacers. It was over before this game even started. They were eliminated, but they lost their 0-3 in Cup games. Now the Pistons ran them off of the floor tonight. Really rough performance for the Pacers and kind of hard to dive into. I'll explain why, but I hope you get the gist as I'm talking about this game. Pacers shoot 48%. They shot 36% from three. They made 92.3% of their free throws. They won the turnover battle, and they were even on the offensive glass, and they lost by 24. They got smoked in this game despite a lot of pretty good statistical indicators because they could not guard anything. And some of it was really, really terrific shooting from the Detroit Pistons, who got 5 for 9 from deep from Malik Beasley. Simone Fontecchio made his only 3, 4 for 8 from Cade Cunningham, 3 for 8 from Jaden Ivey, 2 for 5 from Tobias Harris. Only 2 Pistons players who took a 3 shot under 37.5%, and that was Tim Hardaway Jr. and Asar Thompson, wrong twin. All the rest of them were on fire from deep. 47.4% from long range was the Detroit Pistons tonight. Now here's the thing. On one hand, that's unusually hot on pretty good volume. On the other hand, the Pacers were not defending those shooters particularly well. And I think that bleeds into the story of this game, which was the poorest Pacers defense for much of the night. They were kind of in this in the first quarter. They were up 16-11. Looked like the Pacers had a good chance to do something, right? Get out ahead, break out a lead, look good. They were scoring pretty easily, and the Pistons just immediately ran away. They were up 12 later in the first quarter after that Pistons 5-point lead. Really strong run from Detroit, who never looked back. I got kind of close at one point in the second quarter, but was a 15-point game before halftime. I mean, just all Detroit all night, and it never got particularly close in the second half. I don't think the lead got less than 10 outside of the first couple seconds of the second half of this game because there was no way for the Pacers to get enough stops to go on a run, right? Every time they had a little surge, it was like 7-0 because they got hot. Like Tyrese Halliburton had that happen for him, or a nice surge from TJ McConnell, who had a pretty good game in general, but the defense was just atrocious for the Pacers in this game, and that's why they couldn't make any burst or make any comeback. I mean, they had no energy. Their communication was poor. They even said their rotations were poor. So this is the number that's going to stand out. The shooting, this happens. Like, we've seen teams shoot this well against the Pacers before. Even on games the Pacers defended a little better than this, their defense was not good in this game. That was a factor in the shooting to me. From inside the arc, the Detroit Pistons were 30 for 45. That's 66.7%. Absurdly good. At the rim, 18 for 23, 78.3% layup line. And the Pacers blocked the very first layup attempt from the Pistons. That was Quentin Jackson on that. So really 18 for the last 22 layups or shots right at the basket went in. Easy shots. They were getting past their defenders. They were breaking through pick and roll coverages, and the Pacers could not effectively rotate behind the play or step up or just have any help there. And when they did help, it was overhelp, and they came in too far. They couldn't recover to the shooters I described earlier. And so these kind of numbers played in tandem. 18 made shots right at the rim for the Pistons, 12 for the Pacers, and we already went over the threes, which the Pistons made 18 of and the Pacers made 12 of. That is where the difference comes in this game, despite a lot of other stats suggesting this game should be much, much, much more even. Other numbers that stand out, 4 to 14 feet the Pistons, 10 for 19. That's over 50%. And long twos, they made 2 of their 3. So inside the arc, they were just so comfortable. Pacers really struggled to stop them, to keep them out of the paint, to force them to move the ball or to get them to tough shooters. When the Pacers beat this Pistons team earlier this season, they beat them the way a lot of teams have beaten the Pistons this year, which is the Pistons per possession basis have not been particularly efficient, but they're good at the possession battle. Tonight it was the opposite. The Pacers did pretty well in the possession battle. I thought they took more shots and got to the foul line, but the Pistons were all over them in the per possession efficiency game, and that's why the Pacers lost. They could not stop this Detroit team at all. I think one problem that kind of stemmed out in this game defensively for the Pacers was a player that's been pretty good for the Pacers, Quentin Jackson, was a tough guy to use in this game because the hope for the Pacers was Mathurin on Jaden Ivey, which is what they opened with, which has been usually a fun back and forth, was not tonight. And then, Miles Turner on Jalen Duren, Siakam on Tobias Harris. Then they can put Tyrese Halliburton on Tim Hardaway. That's probably the best place to put him. And then they put Quentin Jackson, who's been a good perimeter defender. He's gotten the Dame matchup, the LaMelo Ball matchup, Jalen Green, to name a few in recent weeks that have gone pretty well for him. They put him on Cade Cunningham. And the maybe you could easily in retrospect, the benefit of hindsight, say, no, it should have been Mathurin on Cade and Quentin Jackson on Jay Ivey, but I understand how they got to Quentin Jackson on Cade Cunningham, no problem. It didn't work. Cade Cunningham, not at the expense of any effort necessarily from Quentin Jackson, he just shot right over him. And it was tough to stop him. And then the bench came in, and the best answer for Cade Cunningham at that time was T.J. McConnell. Same issue, right? He was fighting. They were up on him too short, so Cade could just shoot over those guys. Cunningham, 10 for 19 on his way to 24 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals. He did have 6 turnovers, but was largely excellent as a creator and scorer because of those size advantages. And that forced the Pacers to adjust pretty quickly. They turned to Jarris Walker to defend Cade Cunningham. And to Jarris Walker's credit, very good Jarris Walker game. But T.J. McConnell said after the game, best Jarris Walker game ever. I don't know about that. I think the Orlando game earlier this season might be the answer there, but certainly one of the best. Noticeably good game from Jarris Walker, who hit 2 threes, who finished to play inside the arc, drew a foul, 5 steals, only 1 turnover for Walker. It was a weird play, but it was bad. 4 assists. Like, he did good things, and he had the Cade task, and I thought did pretty good with it. But that meant other defensive matchups were not necessarily either what the Pacers had planned for or what they thought would end up being the case. And so Tobias Harris suddenly has a shots he likes, or Duran does, or, there's just a lot of snowballing that comes from changing your matchups because of that size disadvantage and issues that they had. And so Cade really, by being a jumbo creator, gave the Pacers specific problems. A game that the Pacers really missed Aaron Nesmith. Aaron Nesmith would have been the perfect answer to this exact problem. In fact, Aaron Nesmith probably would have started the game defending Cade Cunningham if he was still a starter upon returning, but it wasn't really there. So that's the biggest story of the game, was that the struggles defensively and the ripple effects of that exact thing. Tyrese Haliburton made 8 of his 13 shots. Quinn Jackson made half of his. Miles Turner was 3 for 8. He had a slightly off night. Pascal Siakam 9 for 19, and Ben Mathurin 6 for 11. That's like a fine to acceptable game from the starters. Like, the Pacers could have won with that, but they only scored 106. Their bench once again struggled. Jarris was pretty good. McConnell had some very loud scoring, 12 points, 3 assists. He was making those twos. The rest of their bench was not good. Obi Toppin 1 for 5. He struggled defensively again. Moses Brown only played 4.5 minutes. They didn't turn back to him until garbage time. Johnny Furphy was missing shots despite having a nice block and some interesting defensive moments. They could not get anything from their bench guys. We even heard from Rick Carlisle. Like, they really only trusted 8 players in this game. 8 guys at 15-plus minutes for the Pacers, and then a bunch of guys at 5 or less. It's just tough to play that way, but it's what the Pacers have available right now. That looked like they were going to go to Enrique Freeman early in the fourth quarter, but then something changed. He didn't end up coming in the game, but really tough rotation for the Pacers in this game, and their bench continues to struggle. And Carlisle talked a little bit about getting the scores on the floor, as much scoring or creation as possible at times before the game. I'd have to pull the exact quote. I think I kind of butchered how he was describing it, which is like why he subs out the guys he subs out first, and now he tries to sort out the bench. But it was tough for them to get, to me, this was my other takeaway, the right 5th guy on the floor. They could get 4 that made sense, but they were toggling in. Okay, here, let's try Moses Brown. Okay, let's try Johnny Furphy. Okay, we can't do Quentin Jackson with this group. Let's try Obi Toppin. There's just a lot of changing of that kind of stuff, and they couldn't figure out the right answer. Didn't quite work. Nothing quite worked for the Pacers. They're 9-11, heading on the road very soon. They will not be back in this building right now for another 9 days. I'll be there for that, obviously. I'll also be in Chicago for their game next weekend as well. But 4 on the road coming up. Winnable games. Memphis is tough. That's their next opponent. But after that, it's the games against teams that Brooklyn, Toronto, and Chicago don't necessarily have great records, although they struggled with the Raptors already this season, and the Nets and Bulls do have some nice wins. So it's not a given. Pacers need to play well. They did not play well tonight, 9-11, before these next 5 that are all games they could win. And if they want to keep their season going, they need to win many of them. Much more coming on Locked On Pacers about this game and much more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.